Hey everybody, I'm Joe Harford,
And I'm Angie Singer-Keating.
and this is
Data security,
Over Coffee.
but you don't have any coffee.
I know I don't have any coffee, and I think everybody's going to be okay with that. No one wants me to have any more coffee today already.
That's for sure.
That's right. So there are three things that we really wanted to be able to talk about today, and the reason for it is as we get toward the end of the year, we talk to folks kind of last minute about, oh my God, there's data breaches and there's ransomware and I don't know what I'm supposed to do and how do I protect myself and all these, my hair's on fire kind of conversations. And so the three things that we want to talk about is number one, why should an organization have a risk assessment performed? The second thing is, what does Reclamere look for when we come on site to clients to conduct a risk assessment? And then finally, when you're out and about and you're trying to figure out, okay, who am I supposed to trust and who am I supposed to work with as a partner to come to my organization and perform a risk assessment, we want to help you with some of the criteria that you should be considering in your selection process for that vendor. So those are the three things that we want to be able to touch on today. So the very first thing, and maybe it seems kind of obvious, although I don't, for myself in talking with people, I don't think it is, why should people have a risk assessment performed in their organization? And let me say this, it doesn't matter whether we're talking about people in healthcare or financial services or education. We're not talking about whether you're a big giant company or a small mom and pop. It really applies to everybody, but why does it apply to everybody? Why should people care?
Well, I think you're right that it's not obvious. And if it were obvious, the vast majority of our clients wouldn't be people who've had data breaches and now need our help.
Sure.
Because their attorney referred them or someone else referred them and said, hey, now that you've had this problem, you need Reclamere to help you.
Right.
So one of the most important things is that every single client that we've worked with, and I can say that without a shadow of a doubt, who has had a data breach or security incident, the root cause, if we had done an analysis prior, we would have found that and been able to have prevented it.
Okay.
That's how important it is.
Okay.
So one of the first things right now in today's world, because attacks are stealth, is you want us to come in and do a risk analysis for you to find out, are you already compromised? Most of today's attacks, the bad guys are in your systems for months, looking around, poking around in a very stealth way, not to raise any suspicion. And the behavior that they're engaged in looks like very normal behavior. And so we can see some of those things happening, and we can start asking questions about, well, why does this particular person use this particular program when your organization shouldn't be allowing that?
So people don't even know that they've been compromised.
Exactly.
They have no idea.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
The next thing is so that you can understand how the latest threats apply to your organization. If you believe that your organization has antivirus and firewalls and you're good, you are not prepared for the latest threats, because the latest threats come into an organization by your staff clicking on something. And the firewall is tuned in such a way to let your staff be productive. So they can be clicking on something and the firewall is going to let it right through. And at that point, the malicious behavior is going to start at a very low level. And if you don't have a risk analysis, you really don't know whether or not those new kinds of threats out there are things that are likely to happen to your organization.
So people have a false sense of security because they have antivirus and they have a firewall in place and they think, hey, we're legit, we don't have anything to worry about, and they are seriously mistaken.
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
Well, Target had firewalls and antivirus.
Right.
Home Depot. The list goes on and on.
Sure.
Of folks that had the latest and greatest and still had a compromise. And most of those root causes would have been found had a security analysis, risk analysis been performed. So that you can make smart security investments. So often we will hear a client say, well, we're going to just renew our antivirus this year. That's what we're going to spend. And we're going to maybe invest in some new firewalls, and that's what we're going to spend. But in today's world, we really need additional protection on top of it. And it really is important to make sure that the investments you're making in security with your IT budget are in alignment with the latest threats that are most likely to happen to your organization. Without that alignment, those dollars can go very quickly. You can start spending a lot of money because vendors come in and tell you about their latest and greatest magic widget that's going to solve every single one of your problems.
Right.
And then you're still left exposed.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the biggest challenges that I face when we go on site with clients is the idea that security is not this one and done kind of purchase. That is, it's a long-term investment like anything else as it pertains to your business. So I definitely see where you're coming from. It's hard to get people to understand and wrap their head around that.
The final thing really is that if your customers have not yet required you to demonstrate to them that you have had a security risk analysis performed, it's just a matter of time. If you are any type of organization that does work with the federal government, as of May, an executive order was signed that requires you to have a risk management program in place in accordance with the NIST cybersecurity framework for critical infrastructure. And so these kinds of new requirements that are coming out from a regulatory perspective, or customers, vendors, and partners whose systems that you integrate with are requesting that you can demonstrate that you do in fact have a security risk analysis performed and that you follow through and remediate the problems that are found. That's one of the other big reasons that clients, when they do call us proactively, they're calling to say, hey, I need to do a risk analysis to fill out my cybersecurity insurance application.
Okay.
I need a risk analysis because my biggest client is requiring that I show them that I've had it done. That's really happening more often now.
So I would say that, if you take a look at a trend, then I would imagine that people will begin to develop more RFPs where there will be a component in there where one of our clients would have to demonstrate to someone that they had a risk analysis performed by a qualified third party. And oh, by the way, we want to see the results of it and what your ongoing security plan may look like. So in talking about risk assessments, explaining to people why they're important. Mm-hmm. So now I think sharing with people, when we come on site, when you or Connie or someone else from Reclamere comes on site to perform a risk assessment for someone, what are you looking for when you're on site with one of those clients? What are the things that are important to you?
There are literally hundreds of things we are looking for.
Okay, that's a lot, and we don't have enough time, so skinny it down.
Okay.
There you go.
So one of the very first things that we will do is we will run some various tools where we will look for things like weak passwords. We will look for things like unpatched systems. These are two of the biggest risks in organizations that end up having a cybersecurity attack,
so
ransomware attack or some other type of data breach.
So statistically, from your experience, if you put 10 companies on the table and you look for those two vulnerabilities, of those 10 companies, how many fail those two areas?
8.
80% fail.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Okay. So what are the other of the hundreds things that we look for?
But you didn't ask me why they would fail.
Well, okay. Well, why did they fail? I mean, I think it's pretty obviously why they fail, because they don't have plans in place and they don't do what they're supposed to do and they don't work with a cool company like Reclamere. But you can tell me some other reason.
Well, it really comes down to trust but verify.
Okay.
When we ask them, they say, we have strong passwords. We make everybody have strong passwords. We run our tests and find out that's not the case.
All right.
We run our tests. We have system administrators. Yeah, we have a patch management program in place. We patch systems. When we find out that we have critical systems that are 6 months, 12 months out of date for their patching. And so it comes down to our interpretation based on solid guidelines from the National Institutes for Standards and Technology on what best practices are. And I can tell you that 6 month out of date patching is not a best practice under any sort of standard requirement, reasonableness baseline.
Okay. So besides passwords and patch management, what are some of the other things?
Well, one of the things we want to do is put ourselves in the mind of the attacker. We want to think about the path of attack. So, do you have unsecured wireless access points? Do you have rogue access points? We also want to take a look at your team. We want to see how educated they are about malware and phishing attacks where fake emails come in and trick them into clicking on things. We do that by creating our own fake emails, sending them out, seeing how many of your staff click on them. We want to get that baseline. If 80% of your staff clicks on those links when we send them out, then we want to wait 6 or 8 weeks and we want to do it again after some education. And we want to see, can we get that down to 50? Can we get 50 down to 30? We want to really get your staff thinking in a security mindset and being able to demonstrate that they're not going to be vulnerable to somebody calling on the phone saying, hey, this is Joe Harford, and I absolutely positively have to have my password for whatever, and you need to log in right now and go to this website because I'm traveling. And, that's called social engineering and getting your staff all nervous and wanting to help someone on the phone that they have not verified is actually Joe Harford.
Right. Okay.
The other thing that we're going to look for improperly configured systems. And this is something that can be really challenging for your IT staff to stay on top of, making sure that your servers and every one of your desktops have configurations in place that are in accordance with the vendor, such as Microsoft or Oracle or any of these other manufacturers, that things are configured in accordance with best practices. We all fall into a routine of, well, this is how we do something, but making sure that we follow the recommended configurations from the manufacturers are really important. So we're gonna analyze that. Another big thing is we're going to be looking for out-of-date devices, hardware. If you've got Windows XP systems in your organization right now, you need to pick up the phone and you need to call us. We need to get you a security evaluation and help you understand how vulnerable you are with these systems in your organization. The same way if you have Server 2003 still running in your environment. And finally, what we're going to look for are checks and balances.
Okay.
Are you actually validating that what you say you do is being done in your organization? Are you actually validating that when you ask a vendor if they have a security risk analysis, that you're following through and making sure that they provide you an attestation that they have in fact had it done? We want to also make sure that when you say you have those strong passwords, we want to make sure that that is in fact what your staff are doing.
Okay. So when they go to pick a vendor, and they're gonna make this investment in security, they're gonna have this person in their network, they're gonna trust these people to do the right thing, and then they're gonna trust that this person is gonna give them really worthwhile information. What should people be looking for in that vendor?
Well, I think the most important thing right off the bat is that you need to make sure that they have the proper professional liability insurance coverage.
Okay.
So if an organization comes to you and you ask, what kind of insurance do you have before you're going to come in and look at my network and look at my systems? And they say, oh, well, we have $20 million in general liability insurance. That's wonderful if one of their staff slips and falls in your parking lot, or one of your own staff happens to trip over one of their laptop cords.
Right.
It has absolutely nothing to do with if they screw up your network while they're there.
Okay.
It has absolutely nothing to do with if they inadvertently cause a data breach because they've done a data sample that they take on an external hard drive and leave in the trunk of their car. Mm-hmm. So professional liability insurance that covers them for performing IT security consulting services is absolutely crucial. Don't even talk to an organization that doesn't have that. And that goes for a company and especially for a single individual.
All right. Okay. What else?
Well, the next thing is conflicts of interest. So Reclamere doesn't sell firewalls. We may recommend several different ones that we think you might take a look at. And we certainly don't come in and configure your firewall. and then come back and say, and by the way, we'd like to evaluate that configuration and tell you whether there's anything wrong with it. No, that is a complete conflict of interest. That's why in an organization you have your internal bookkeeper, you have your accounts payable, accounts receivable, but you still have a CPA. Reclamere is to your data what your CPA is to your money.
Okay.
And
Good
that's
analogy.
why
Right.
you would have us perform those types of services, as opposed to the people that you buy your servers from, as opposed to the people that you buy your firewalls from.
So you mean to tell me that there are people out there that could be unethical?
I know it's.
Oh my goodness, I'm so saddened by that now.
Yeah, I know. And don't even get me on my soapbox of how there needs to be a point in our profession where those of us who are certified in information security have the same fiduciary responsibilities as a CPA or as an attorney.
You see that? We have no time for your soapbox. Keep on going.
Okay. Somebody told me that I should wear my glasses today because they make me look smarter than you.
They do make you look smarter than me, but that doesn't take a lot for anybody to look smarter than me.
So then the next thing that you really want to look for, you want to look for the credentials of the staff, the credentials of the professional that's going to work for you. Now, what that means is you're going to want to look for certain specific certifications that require years of experience, education, and validation and continuing education credit.
Okay.
So they stay up to date, very much like the medical and legal professions as well as accounting professions.
Sure.
So some of those credentials to start out with, one of them is the CISSP, and that is the Certified Information Systems Security Professional.
Okay. Wow.
Another one is the CISA or CISM, which are Certified Information Security Auditor or Certified Information Security Manager.
So you're really looking for somebody who has an alphabet soup after their last name, like you.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
All right.
But yes, and those are important because they are very, very well policed in terms of who holds them, how you get them, how you maintain them, and pulling those certifications back from people that don't comply with the educational requirements and so forth.
Okay.
And then finally, the last thing is you want the engagement of the owners or partners of the company. You know, some very big name security companies out there will come in, sit down, talk with you about the credentials that their folks hold.
Right.
And then the day that it's time to start your engagement, you get a couple people that are straight out of college with 1 or 2 years of experience. Security is not the place for learning on the job. Now, it's great when very experienced people will come with those junior level technicians, and those junior level technicians provide a very valuable service in assisting. But you want the oversight and the participation of the owners of the company. When clients work with us at Reclamere, they have your cell phone number, they have my cell phone number. If there's anything that they are not happy with, they simply can text or call. And once we're engaged with them, we are overseeing every single component of the project that our security analysts, forensic engineers, and junior technicians are participating in.
Right. So, with everything that we've talked about today, what do you think is a good logical next step for somebody to do? What should they do?
The things that I've just reviewed, Reclamere has, and these are the bare minimum. There are more things that you should look for in whomever you're going to work with. And those are the types of things that when Reclamere performs a no cost, no obligation security evaluation for you, that we're going to review with you. And so the most important thing is just start the conversation. And the final thing that I would put out there is this is not the type of service that you necessarily want the lowest bidder. It's fine to put out a request for a proposal, but when you're looking at a security risk analysis, going with the lowest price is kind of like looking for the cheapest doctor when you need brain surgery.
Okay.
Really not a good idea.
Okay.
So these requirements are some of the bare minimum, and I can they don't come cheap, but definitely you can find companies like Reclamere that can make this endeavor affordable and work with you in a way that we can guide your program and take you down a path of becoming more and more secure and compliant.
You can find Angie at reclamere.com or reach out on LinkedIn. My email address is joseph@reclamere.com, or also reach out to me on LinkedIn. Reach out on our direct line if you'd like to, but regardless, if we can help in any way, we'd appreciate the opportunity. So thanks so much, and have a great day.